somewhere deep in the night beyond the cover-ups and shadows, the scariest monsters lurk on the dark side of the paranormal. You're listening to the Foust Files with your host, Chris Foust. To reach Chris by phone, dial 833-355-TALK. That's 833-355-8255. And now, from the depths of a secret location outside the Rocky Mountains, here's your host, Chris Foust.
From the Mile High City and the foothills across the Rockies, I welcome you all to the Foust Files, the only show of its kind that makes you think twice about those creepy little things that go bump in the night. As we stream this program to all major social media platforms and various stations across the U.S., I'm your host, Chris Foust. And tonight, we have another very special guest for you, Krystal Hope Reed. She is a pet psychic, and we're going to be talking to her here in a little bit. And before we do, there's a lot of things that I want to mention to you. For everybody who's watching us on Instagram, I want to say hello to everybody. So if you guys see me and I wave off to the side of the camera here and I'm kind of focusing, I have my phone set up and I'm waving to everybody out there at Instagram, the Instagram world, because they're all waving at me and everything. Now, if you guys are on Instagram and you want to watch this show and you want to hear what's going on, go to YouTube and make sure that when you search for Foust Files. And when you search for Foust Files, just like here, just like this logo says, you're going to come up with this show. It's live right now. So you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to listen. Also, subscribe. And here's why. Because we're building our YouTube channel. We want subscribers. We want people who are going to watch the show because we do this show every week. And sometimes we do it 3 times a week. Sometimes we do it more. And you never know who we're going to have on the show. Special guests. We can also take special callers, too, if you want. So definitely want to give you all that information right now. Our website is faustfiles.com. And you can go up there and you can check out Krystal's bio and everything as well, which is on our site. You can also call the show. Now, I know some people had some problems with calling the show from the website. And if you want to call the show, you certainly can. So everybody out in Instagram and everybody who's watching on Twitter and YouTube and everywhere else, if you're watching this live, you can call the show and you can ask Krystal a question. You can ask me a question. Whatever you want to talk about, that's fine. But tonight, Krystal's going to be talking to us about the psychic world and also with animals. So if you have like an animal, you want to find out a little bit more. I know she won't be able to do anything on the air, but you can definitely ask her some questions. Maybe you're interested in psychic abilities. Maybe you feel like you have your own psychic abilities. Well, that's something that we definitely want to hear from you and see if we can discuss that tonight. So I want to start off with the previous show that we had. We talked about Bob Lazar. A couple things about Bob Lazar that I have coming up. We have a special guest that we're trying to get in next week. And the special guest, I'm not going to say who it is right now. I'm going to keep you in suspense. But they have something very unique to say about Bob Lazar. And it's going to be breaking right here on this show. And I want you to check that out. So that is, the Bob Lazar thing. And I've got it up on my screen here. So this documentary came out. And with this documentary, they talked about Bob Lazar's been gone for 30 years. We haven't seen or heard from him since. Now, all of a sudden, a documentary has surfaced. Brand new. It's really good, too, by the way. If you guys get a chance to check it out, I recommend that you do. And with this documentary, he has alluded to the fact that he has element 115 in his possession. We don't know if that's the case, but he's alluded to the fact. We also are learning a few different things about him. The FBI has been raiding his facility. The FBI has been watching him closely. Why would they be so concerned about him to this day if he's just a guy, an entrepreneur? He has his own business. It's actually a really cool business. I liked it. I liked everything that he's a scientist. His website deals with science. That's who he caters to. Why would they be so concerned about him? It just raises so many questions, his story. And I watched a Stanton Friedman. I watched an old video where he claimed Bob Lazar, he said, was a fraud because of his MIT credibility. And I'm thinking to myself, if you worked for a top secret facility like Bob Lazar and you expose a huge top secret information, I mean, the fact that he exposed extraterrestrial craft and extraterrestrials and Area 51, that tells you that that's a big no-no in the government, right? Don't do that. Otherwise, we deny everything and we crush you. We ruin everything about you. Doesn't that seem like that's what happened to Bob Lazar? They denied his credibility. They denied him his history, his educational history. They denied him a lot of things. They now are still to this day, investigating him, watching him, keeping tabs on him. They know everything about him. They know they know everything about us too, don't they? I mean, Google knows everything about us. Facebook knows everything about us. The government knows everything about us. So anymore, we're not safe, right? And I think it takes a lot of courage for Bob to come out again and to talk about this. I know he just wants to live in peace, but it's really interesting. So we have a special guest, and I'm going to announce that special guest next week. And they're going to tell us something very, very interesting about Bob Lazar. And you're only going to hear it here, so you have to tune in to this show because you're only going to hear it here, nowhere else. The other thing was, during the show, the last one, I wanted to talk about this NASA rover that's on Mars. And let me pull that up here really quick. I got to find my mouse because my mouse jumps from all these different screens that I have up here. I have 3 different ones, so I always have to find it. Now, according to this recent article that I found, and it really piqued my interest, there is an alien robot spotted by NASA's Curiosity rover that's on Mars. And what it does, if you can see in the screen that I'm going to pull up here, you can see that picture right there that I just put up. That picture is supposedly, that is the rover that they're claiming is not ours. That it's some type of alien device. And you can be the judge of that one because the picture is right there in black and white. You can see there's a lot of weird things on Mars. Have you ever noticed that? And we have this way, our brain tricks us into thinking that certain things look like others. We see faces. We see things like pipes. We see machinery. We see people sometimes, right? We've seen a lot of people on Mars. There's photos that we can pull up that show somebody walking on Mars, but it's just a rock. That's what everybody says. NASA says that. Scientists say that. The debunkers say that. They say it's just a rock. Well, everything's just a rock, sure, up here. It looks like it's just a rock. But I don't know. This one looked kind of weird to me because this little thing that's in this black and white photo looks like it is some type of machine sitting on Mars, on the surface of Mars. And I'll have you just take a look at it, and we have it pulled up. Just take a look at that real quick. And let me know what you think. And if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Instagram and you want to chat and let me know what you think, just let me know what you think about it. That was the other thing that I wanted to bring up from the last show. And before we get into Krystal, there's just two more things. We have these new giveaways that we're doing. I think I talked about that on the last one, but we have these alien pin giveaways that are really neat because they have a picture of a little green alien, right, with the big eyes and everything. And it glows in the dark. And we actually have these custom made. And that's a key thing, custom made for the show. So they're limited edition. You're not going to find them anywhere else. They're custom made and they're only for our subscribers. So if you want to subscribe, I encourage you, subscribe to us on YouTube, because what you're going to get is you're going to get our show that we have live all the time. You're going to get our pre-recorded stuff, our segments that we're doing, that we're producing, they're going to be awesome. You're going to get all that stuff, and you get the chance every time we do a show, we're giving away a free alien pin to somebody. Let's go ahead and let's jump right into Krystal here. Let me get situated here, because we are down to 1 hour on the show now, and we need to get her in so we can talk to her. And if you want to call in, you can. I don't know if we'll get to calls tonight. 833-355-8255. You can call that number. It'll reach into the studio. You'll talk to John. He'll put you on the air with me. 833-355-8255. Krystal Hope Reed has a master's degree in counseling psychology and has spent most of her professional life in the fields of counseling, mental health, and education. She's worked with clients as diverse as gifted students, domestic violence victims, the homeless, people with severe mental illness, and individuals and families navigating the psychic awakening process. We'll have to ask her what that means. She has also been a practicing pet psychic since the late 1990s. She stumbled onto the training just on a whim and with a fair amount of skepticism. And her and I did talk off the air. She was definitely a skeptic before she got into this. But soon, she realized that she indeed did have the ability to talk to animals. She has helped people all over the United States with pet issues like unwanted behaviors, medical challenges, and introducing new family members. And she can even connect with animals who have passed on. Her goal is to help as many animals as possible, both on an individual basis and by changing the way people relate to them. Krystal's also an author. When the full extent of her husband's psychic and healing abilities exploded practically overnight, she wasn't satisfied to just cope with the chaos. Instead, she tapped into her therapeutic background and intuition to figure out how to use this challenge as an opportunity to build an even stronger relationship. And then she wrote a book to help others with the same situation. And the book is called How to Live with a Psychic. And we will talk to her about that as well. But first, let's bring her on the air. Krystal, are you there?
I am. Glad to be here, Chris. Thank you.
Yes. Well, we appreciate you coming on. And there are so many things to talk about. And I know we're limited with time and everything. So I wanted to just jump into a few things. First, I want to talk about animals and the ability to talk to them is a unique ability that I don't think every psychic has, correct?
Well, I would say that it's something that every psychic could develop.
Okay.
Because you, if you have any experience with it personally, talking to, all of your listeners, or if you've just heard other people talk about it, you get information through all the different clairs, right? Clairsentience, clairaudience. So you're hearing, you're seeing, you're feeling it in your body. So animal communication comes through the same way. So someone who's already adept at that, say, as a medium especially would be good at this, or any other kind of psychic work, they already have sort of the basic tools, and they just need to tweak it to point it in their antenna in a different direction, so to speak.
Interesting. Okay. So it's very similar to what they're already doing with humans. It's just kind of maybe tuning to the right frequency, maybe?
Yeah. It's actually, of all the other psychic modalities, it's the most like mediumship.
Really?
Because in mediumship, you're speaking to an entity, right? A consciousness that has passed out of the body, but it still exists. And so, whereas with other types of psychic modalities, maybe you're getting information from whatever anybody wants to call it, the ether, the collective consciousness, the wherever they're getting their information, but they're getting information about the subject that's sitting in front of them. Whereas with a medium, you're talking to somebody. With an animal, you're actually talking to the animal. So it's very much like mediumship.
When you talk to an animal, do they speak our language?
Some animals who've lived a long time with humans have a little bit of facility with actual, what we would consider, I call them people words. It doesn't have to be English, right? It could be whatever language they're in the country they're living in. But the majority of their communication comes in the form of sending these very rich, detailed thought, feeling, emotion, idea packages, all sort of like a download that they send to you. And they can also send you, if your body is tuned into it, they can send you, like if I'm asking, where does it hurt? Am I actually get that sensation on my body? So mostly they're talking, they're using images and feelings more than words. Some animals don't have any people words at all. And I would have to say that the messages you get telepathically, and we could probably do this person to person, this would apply as well if we were adept at human-to-human telepathy, are actually sort of fuller and more complex than just what I can describe to you with words, because words are limited, right? Things get lost in translation. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Now, are some animals different from others? For instance, dogs and cats?
Are you talking just general personality?
Or in the way that they communicate with you, and personality? Because I'm trying to think, if you were communicating with a dog, it seems to me they would communicate with more emotion than what a cat would. Because cats all seem to be very, and no offense to any cat people out there, but they just seem to be very cut off from the happy to see you emotion. Does that make sense?
I totally get where you're coming from with that. And, nobody's ever asked it quite that way. I'll have to say, yeah, on average, yeah, you would be right. I mean, but it does so much relate to their personalities, right? Like, about 2 months ago, I was talking to a cat who was super dramatic, but that wouldn't have been a surprise if you knew the cat in person and sort of knew their personality, right? So it wasn't about catness. It was about just that individual's personality who happened to be a cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about other animals just all across the board? Are they all very psychically tuned in? Or are there some, I know some people out there think that even dolphins have a greater capability of intelligence and psychic abilities than any other animal. Are there some that just on the scale just kind of go way past everybody else?
Now, intelligence and psychic ability would be different things. I would say that, I think that dolphins almost certainly are some of the smartest species on the planet. But in terms of telepathy, this is what animals use to communicate all the time. So if you've had multiple dogs in your house, for example, you know well enough that their full conversation isn't just their barks and growls and whether or not they're wagging their tail, right? I mean, that can't possibly be it. So they really they're constantly sending telepathic messages to each other all the time. So there's whole big conversations, their whole inner world that we're not experiencing. And that's not just dogs. It's just that we happen to be we're more familiar with dogs, cats, then you go to horses, things like that, animal species that we've domesticated, that we live with regularly. But all the animals out there are doing that. So bears are doing that, squirrels are doing that, crows are doing that.
So are you saying that they're communicating to themselves telepathically as well?
With each other, yeah.
Really?
The animals in your house are talking to each other all the time.
Really?
And the animals in your house are listening to you all the time.
I see.
The only one who's not on the ball in this loop is us.
And why is that? Why are we not on the ball with communicating telepathically?
I'm not really sure. It seems like over the millennia, it's something that we've lost. I really think that it's sort of like a birthright. It's part of our true nature as a member of the animal world. And then as we've advanced in society, and I think science, technology, even religions over the years have demonized these kinds of things as not as being evil or untrue, or there's a shame put on it or whatever. I think as humans, we've sort of pushed away or suppressed our natural psychic ability. I think everyone has the ability to do this to some degree. So you said it's kind of a unique thing. You used that word in the beginning, and it is because not a lot of people are doing it right now, but I feel very strongly that everyone with the right mindset and practice could get this back to at least some point.
Now, do animals have the capability to communicate with us when we sleep? Because I know with my dogs, I've had dreams about them. And it's the weirdest thing, because when you have a dream about your animal, sometimes it could be just the most basic thing. It could be just sitting on the couch watching TV and they're there with you and that's your dream. Is that something where they're communicating with us through our dreams? Do they have that ability to do that?
There's no reason they couldn't be doing that.
Okay.
Especially someone, as anybody we know, that where dreams are their channel, right, for their intuition and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, animals would go through there. They can put thoughts in our head, and that can come through in the dream state.
Wow. So these animals that we encounter on a daily basis, whether they're ours or animals that we work with, because I know there's a lot of people out there who work with dogs, they work with cats, they work with people. There's veterinarians, there's cattle ranchers, there's people who have so many different types of animals. They are essentially on their own ignoring such a big opportunity, because to me, I think that if we had the ability, all of us, to just connect with those animals on a different level, I think that we would realize that even though we're completely different, humans take on a lot of different traits from animals, but we're all still we're living this life together, so we're all here. Right. We all have things to do, which then brings me to another point. Do these animals, like our dogs and our cats, do they have a purpose for us? Like, are they, whether it's an emotional purpose or just, are they supposed to be here specifically for us?
A lot of times they are. That's one of the main differences, I would say, between like a dog soul and a human soul, is that we come here sort of with our own purpose for ourselves, right? Our own soul growth, and we want to do well for others too. And a dog especially, but other kinds of animals too, will come with their purpose is to support a specific human being, for example, So yeah, that does happen, and I don't hear of many animals that come and are aware of their own individual, like this is for my own individual growth or benefit. Some species come, but like dolphins, like whales, that sort of thing, sometimes come with this sort of collective mentality about what they're doing as a group, and then domesticated animals more often come specifically for us.
They're there to help us through our collective, correct? Then essentially.
Yes.
Which could be a lot of things, because we do have a lot of challenges in our lives. And I've noticed that domestic animals have a way of bringing us back to a certain point that helps us navigate certain things like depression, anxiety. Animals have this, and I don't know if it's just more of a natural thing or if we're connecting to an animal when we're upset, if maybe our self is kind of changing that frequency when we're sad, depressed, or anxious, or whatever it could be, even happy. I mean, the emotion of being happy also can stir up, that sense of wanting to, snuggle with your dog and watch a movie, right? So either way, either emotion on either scale with humans, it seems like when you come home to the animal, they're always there for you. And they seem to be they have a healing property to them.
Yes, I agree. And I can't say I know exactly what the energetic mechanism is that's happening there, who is changing whose energy and all that sort of stuff. But they are aware that they are serving that purpose for us.
Now, I just want to let everybody know, and I'm just going to give a wave on Instagram because everybody's waving at me. If you want to ask a question, you can do so for Krystal. And we're talking about pets, animals, and we're talking about psychic abilities. And there's also, on our website, you can click on the chat icon, and you can send us just a chat. If you want to just send it directly to us, that's fine. We will go ahead and put that on the air. Now, what I want to say is that we have, Gary did do that. He sent us a chat, and he says, let's see, so could, say, a cattle rancher, could they be in tune to communicate with their livestock? Would they start to think about going vegan or just reconsider industrial meat production? Okay, so I see what Gary's saying. He's saying if they were able to tune in to their cattle, would they change their mind about killing the cattle?
Well, I can't speak for anybody, but to just approach that from a different angle, when you were saying, oh, well, people who work around animals, like animal trainers or vets or whatever, and you mentioned cattle ranchers. And we didn't go that direction in the conversation, but I was going to say, I think that a lot of people have this blocked off very intentionally because there are several fields like that where it would be devastating to actually be able to hear what they're trying to say to you, or pick up in your body the somatic feelings that they're feeling, either emotions or the pain from what's happening to them or whatever. So yeah, I don't want to speak for everybody out there. There might be listeners who are working these fields and they would speak for themselves, but I do feel like in certain areas, people are subconsciously, intentionally shut off from it because it would just be unbearable.
Now, I've got to tell you, because I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people out there watch YouTube, and I've seen meat production lines, and I've got to say that has turned me into a vegetarian. And I've been slowly getting off meat for 6 months because for some reason, when I've watched those production line videos, it's sad. It is the most, it's horrific how they take these animals and they just they string them up, the chickens. They put them up on these hooks and they send them into this water, and it kind of like shocks them and kills them. So they're like drowning and being shocked. And then they're doing all sorts of stuff to kind of defeather them, clean them, gut them, all this other stuff. It is, if you look at it from a different standpoint and you watch it from the very beginning where they're loading these chickens in, and these poor chickens are like poking their heads out saying, hey, where are we going? And they think they're going somewhere. They don't know what's going on. And they are individuals just like us.
Yeah.
They just share a different body. That's it. And there's no way that I would want my friends, my family, or myself to go through that.
Right.
And so I wonder what I'm going through. Because I'm going through a process right now where it's really tough. And it's very hard for my family, because my family's always been meat eaters. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard for them to even understand. I'm not trying to change anybody. If they want to eat meat, they eat meat. But I'm changing myself, and I've been slowly going off of it. And every day I'm just refusing to eat more and more of that. And
okay.
I'm wondering, am I feeling, what am I feeling? Am I feeling empathy? Am I feeling a connection that is awakening for me? And is that what other people out there are feeling if they're having the same reaction?
Well, I'm not sure how you relate to things in the world if you're more of a mental person, and whether this all just hits you in a very sort of logical, pragmatic way, because you could arrive at it that way. Or I don't know whether you were actually feeling in your chest, in your stomach, something like that when you were watching it. You were having a visceral reaction to it. It is possible. So I work through photographs. So this is something that I find really interesting. I work through photographs. I can work in person, but I prefer to work through photographs. So anytime I look at a photograph or a video of an animal looking at the camera, I can tune into them. I have to block myself from not doing it so that I'm not constantly barraged by every picture of an animal that I see.
Right.
But because this is possible, I happen to know that if you watch those videos, if you were looking at them, you may very well have been picking up subconsciously some of their cries for help and some of their pain and all of that. That very well may have happened to you, because it's a totally possible thing that happens.
Huh.
But only you can say whether you actually felt that or registered that. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, well, let's change topics here a little bit, because we're talking about animals. Let's talk about humans.
Okay.
Now, you wrote a book, How to Live with a Psychic.
Yes.
When you mean how to live with a psychic, what do you mean by that?
Okay. I'm a very pragmatic Virgo, so the title is very literal.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. And so I would say that it's really a book for people who are new to the experience. If, you've been married 25 years and your husband has always been that guy, whatever, and you've learned to live with it, you don't really need what's in my book, because you've already figured this out on your own.
Okay.
But because the veil is thinning, and I think I'm not the only one who thinks that that's true, more and more people are starting to awaken into spiritual awakening and psychic awakening. And so these things can really impact a relationship if this wasn't part of your life together, and now, bam, it sometimes hits like a ton of bricks and changes a whole lot of stuff, the dynamics in the house, the difficulty of maintaining a job. I've known people who had to quit jobs over this because they couldn't sleep at night, they couldn't focus, they were going through all this, for lack of a more scientific word, freak out, and they had to stop working for a few months. So there's really significant things that people experience. It's not just about, oh, well, that's cool, now I see dead people walking around my house.
I'm sorry, do they see dead people walking around?
Some people do. I'm just using that as an example of one thing that people might see.
What about hearing voices?
Hearing voice, it could be hearing voices, being touched. It could be that now there's sort of poltergeist activity in the house where, like, things move, you know, and all that sort of stuff. Any of this realm, or imagine suddenly developing the ability of psychometry, which is when you touch something, you know everything about it. You know its history, right? You know who it belongs to and all this kind of stuff. How do you go out in public when every door you touch you get, like, this big wave of information? So until you learn to control it and integrate it into your life, that beginning stage of when someone's developed spontaneous psychic ability be really, really disruptive to people's lives and relationships. And so that's what the book is about, is how to deal with that from the partner's perspective. Because there was no book on the market. There's lots of books for psychics, how to develop your psychic ability, or memoirs of people who are psychic, etc. There was no book on Amazon from if your partner becomes psychic and is sort of falling apart, how do you handle that? And so I wrote that book.
This reminds me of a scene from Bruce Almighty. Have you seen the movie?
Yes.
Okay. So the part where he's ignoring prayers and all of a sudden voices come through and he's like, "Oh, it's getting really loud in here, isn't it? Can you tone it down a bit?" Right? And I'm thinking,
right.
Do psychics, do they just kind of, like, sometimes if they can't control it, are they tuning in to thoughts and voices that are out there like that?
There are people, who can, they're disturbed by the thoughts of those around them. Or, so it could be living people, right? The same as animals communicate telepathically. Humans actually do on a much lesser level and not necessarily intentionally. But anybody who's been in a long-term relationship or maybe a parent-child relationship knows that you have what I refer to as thought sharing. A lot, it seems like, both out of nowhere think of exactly the same thing at the same time.
Oh, yeah, I've had that.
Okay.
That is amazing when that happens, too.
It's great, isn't it? I love the feeling of connection with a person when that happens. But imagine if you're open enough that you're getting that from, like, everybody in the room when you walk in, you know?
Yeah.
It's why a lot of people who are psychics, or we call them now sensitives or intuitives, they have to avoid crowded places and everything, right?
I was just going to say that.
Getting all that. Either on an emotional level, they're taking on everyone's emotions. I worked at a school for many years for kids. We'll call them difficult kids. We'll just say that.
Okay.
And some of those kids, now that I know what I'm looking at, I could recognize that they were strongly intuitive, strongly sensitive. Some of their behaviors were actually because they were sensitive and they were picking up all the emotions of all the other kids around them. And it was overwhelming, you know. But then they end up in a special school because they can't hack it in public school and they don't know what to do with them and they put these labels on them. But it was that. So, yeah, there's people hearing stuff all the time, feeling stuff all the time, and it can be kind of disruptive.
Okay. So there's so many things that I want to ask you. You had mentioned before about poltergeist. So if somebody has a psychic ability, is that an instant beacon to the other side to say, hey, I'm open to things now, so why don't you come on in and disturb my physical environment?
Pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, and the stronger you are, the brighter of a beacon you are. Beacon is exactly the right word for that, yeah. And, you know, you think about, so for example, we'll just stick to benign spirits that are just people who've passed on and haven't moved all the way, right? They're stuck here, either stuck, they think they're stuck, or they've chosen to stay, one or the other. So we'll call them ghosts or spirits or whatever. And most of the human population can't see them, doesn't recognize them. And then someone finally, you know, they're wandering around and someone finally makes eye contact or, you know, metaphorically makes eye contact with them. They're excited. The spirits around them are excited. Like, they want your attention. They're going to follow you home. They're going to touch your face. I mean, they're going to try to mess with your electronics because, oh, my God, somebody could see me.
Oh,
you know?
I see.
I've been here 50 years and nobody's seen me.
Oh, well, exactly. So So you're saying that is pretty much the case for the afterlife then? There are some spirits that are just wandering around for a long time.
Yes.
Really?
Some think they're stuck.
Okay.
There's a large number who are afraid to move on because of their religious upbringing has made them afraid of what might be on the other side.
Could you be a little bit more specific? What kind of religious upbringing would make them afraid to move on?
Mostly people who believe in hell.
Okay.
I mean, that's sort of the only thing. I mean, you don't really see this with Buddhists and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, right? It's the idea of hell. I was bad. Oh my gosh, I was a fornicator. I mean, like, it could be anything, right? Your parents convince you this, and then you die, and you're afraid to go.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who choose to stay because, well, darn it, I never had a grandchild, and I'm going to wait until one of my grandchildren is born, so I'm going to stick around until then.
Okay.
Brett and I, actually, Brett is my husband, who is, the main psychic of the family.
Mm-hmm.
I met through him. He met a man who travels around the country seasonally, a ghost. Goes to different parts of the country in different seasons, when those are the high season for tourism or whatever, because he was just a menial worker his whole life. And so after he died, he decided he was going to stick around for however many years he wanted and go see all the parts of the country that he hadn't gotten to see.
Really?
So people are here for really individual reasons, but there are spirits pretty much almost everywhere. Not everywhere at any moment, but like any house, we say that, there's a such and such a house is haunted. Well, is it like actively, sort of aggressively haunted? But every space potentially has spirits roaming through at any particular time. So in that sense, every place is haunted.
So do they not have the opportunity to cross over, or are they also able to reincarnate? Is that a thing that can happen?
Nice question. Okay, so I don't think, from my experience, from what I've heard, that they can reincarnate until they go all the way, and then you sort of go through the process of deciding, well, what am I going to do next, and the life review and all that. So if they're a ghost here, it means that they haven't taken that step in the process yet.
Okay, so then let me ask you this: what about the people who commit suicide?
To my knowledge, they just have some counseling to do on the other side.
Okay.
And it's not, you don't go to a bad place. You're not, it's not like that. However, you may have cut short your life purpose.
Okay.
Lessons you were supposed to learn, something you were supposed to achieve for someone else's benefit, or whatever you were supposed to do here.
Okay.
You may have cut that short. You may be encouraged to come back and live sort of whatever that drama was over again, so you can make a different choice next time. But really, you just sort of go, from what I've seen, I've done over 24 past life regressions, and some of those I went in between lives, which is equally fascinating. And you're really just sort of judging yourself and reacclimating and then deciding where you want to go next time. And the same applies for people who commit suicide. There's no limbo or whatever for that.
What do you think about people who have said that we have these, I think they're called life points, but I'm not sure. But they're actually points that are, and I don't mean like a game. I mean, it's a point in time. Oh, I think it's called exit points, where if their life goes a certain way, they exit out of that life by that time. And sometimes if things get skewed or changed, they continue on through their life. So in other words, people wonder why some people die young and then some die very old. And that it's that they chose to keep going because there was something that they were missing throughout their life in order to keep learning. Is that something that is a true statement for the other side?
Well, the concept of, choosing to keep going because you haven't achieved or experienced what you're supposed to, that sounds entirely correct and not in any way contradictory to anything I've ever heard before. So while I haven't heard the phrase exit points before, yeah, that theory is totally in line with everything that I've seen and heard. So, yeah.
Okay. What about all of these children that are coming into this world that a lot of times they have words for them. They have, I know they call them enlightened, and I know that they say a lot of different things about how these kids are just, in this right now, where we exist right now, they are just different. And it brings to point certain things like autism, which I don't know if that's chemically induced from some of the foods that we eat or some of the vaccinations. That's a matter of opinion. I'm just saying. But what about autism, autistic kids, and kids that seem to have a different way of looking at our existence right now?
Okay, so I know when you start to get into areas where people think of life challenges, whether that be some sort of illness or disability, or, severe abuse, or, all these terrible things, it's hard for most people to get on board with the idea that, that child was a soul who had a choice to come in, and they're very noble because they picked a hard life to come into,
right.
But that it was their choice. I know that a lot of people don't like that answer, but that's sort of how I look at it, and I've worked with autistic kids, and going back to your original comment, I do think some of it is actually environmentally, chemically induced, some of these difficulties, which is, not ideal. But I would have to say, from my perspective, it applies to myself, any hardship I've had, any hardship that anyone I loved have had, and everyone else, that we did agree to come into these lives.
Yeah.
Even when they're hard,
Okay, so I'm going to change topics here, but first, before we do, because I want to talk about my dog. I know we don't have much time, which is so sad, Krystal, because it's so interesting, and all of this stuff is incredibly intriguing to me, and I know to the listeners out there as well too. It's just really is. But I want to, before we talk about my dog Josie, because Krystal did a reading on my dog Josie, and we'll talk about that towards the end. But before, I want to ask this question. We talked about how autism could be directly from our environment and from chemicals, right, that are induced to our or introduced to our environment. What about negative energy and the media that is currently everywhere is force-feeding, it feels like it's force-feeding negative information versus positive information. Is that affecting us psychically without us knowing about it?
Well, I would say there's no doubt that it increases anxiety and depression in people, depending on people's temperament. It increases aggressive behavior, which is also, not a very good thing for one or anyone around you. It's absolutely having an effect on us. They're seeing over the past however many years, I'll just put it that way, a lot more people who are exhibiting trauma-like symptoms, almost PTSD-like symptoms, even though they haven't experienced anything classically like war, or living through a tornado or something like that. But that's showing up in the population, just in general. And certainly, the negative media is contributing to that, if not a major factor.
Is there any way for us to battle it or to stop it or to protect ourselves from it?
Well, on a personal level, I mean, you have to stop watching, stop listening, right? I mean,
right. That is true.
That actually really goes a long way.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have stopped a lot of news. I've stopped the social media. I am not on Facebook. I mean, the show is on Facebook, and everybody, by the way, if you're watching, I mean, on Instagram, we do a lot of posts that we talk about paranormal activity. Facebook, Twitter, we use it for the show to kind of get the news out there that what we're doing with the show, but I don't personally use it because I've really healthy, yeah. I was so involved in it, and what it does is it hooks you visually. It will literally take your attention away from everything else that's going on in your life. And it's the weirdest thing because you'll sit there and you'll go through and you'll say, well, here's a recipe. Oh, we should try this out. Oh, here's a picture of somebody's cat or dog, and here's what they ate for lunch today. And you keep going through and you keep scrolling because you want something new. You keep going through them. But eventually what happens is all that negativity starts to feed in because we live in a very polarized environment in our world. And that is you're either on one side or you're on the other.
Yeah.
And it's there, you can't be in the middle. You can't be that gray line. And it's what's interesting is that a lot of people are. Because a lot of people share ideas that are from both sides, but for some reason we're just pushed. You either have to choose this side or this side, and that's it. And I think that's really hard for people.
It's and I think that a lot of companies have profited from exacerbating our polarization, and I'm not in favor of any kind of censorship or anything like that, so I don't know how we would fix this, but it sure would be nice if a lot of news media outlets, for example, would step up and just police themselves and be less polarizing.
I agree. All right. Well, I think I got all my questions out of the way, but we are down to the final part of the show, and I want to ask you before I have you kind of let people know, where they can find you, more information, where they can buy your book. Krystal did a psychic reading on my dog, Josie. And Josie is the sweetest dog. I love Josie. I've had Josie for 7 years, and she is wonderful. And there was a couple things. Now, I don't have, Krystal, by the way, I don't have that pulled up in front of me. What you sent me.
Did you read it, though?
I did read it.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
And I know you mentioned that she's younger than what she appears. That is my Josie. She is so much younger than she appears.
Great.
And I think that gets to her sometimes because as it does for everybody, because she will try to run faster than the other dog. She will try to playfully be like the other dogs. And sometimes it's to a point where it kind of hurts her a little bit because I know she has a little arthritis and stuff that we have to give her medication for. But I just think that we all get to that point, where time goes by so fast. These lives, when you're young, you don't think it. But as soon as you get older, you start to realize what everybody else ahead of you was saying is that don't blink because it goes quickly.
Yes.
Now, how did that go with Josie? I sent you the picture of her today.
Yeah.
And could you explain just a little bit? Did you tap into her through that picture?
Yes, that's exactly what happens. Is I sit down on my computer or laptop and I bring up the picture of the animal and I open a Word document and then I just sort of type as the conversation goes on. So you saw what I gave you was sort of like a transcript, right?
Yes.
I said, she said, I said, back and forth, and I ask questions and my fingers try to keep up. And, the information just pops into my head. Like sometimes it comes in pictures, like I said, feelings in my body or emotions, if that's relevant or whatever. But a lot of times it's just like I ask a question, and then the whole answer is just downloaded as one package of information. And so then I have to take that apart and try to write that out as best as I can. But it comes through just like in the snap of a finger, the whole answer to my thing that I stumble around with for words, right? They give you this whole rich thing all in an instant.
Now, can anybody send you pictures and have you do this?
Well, if they want to go to my website, there's information about how to set up a reading.
Okay.
Sure.
What's your website?
I try to make it easy. Everything is just my name, KrystalHopeReid.com. And on Facebook, you can find me, Facebook/Krystal Hope Reid.
Oh, that's perfect.
On Twitter, though, I am at Animal Psychic.
Okay. Wow, that's really good.
Yeah. I was lucky
good job on getting that name.
I know, right?
That's really good. Okay, well, Krystal, I really do appreciate you coming on. And the How to Live with a Psychic book, you can find that on Amazon, correct?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble online. A lot of online retailers actually have it.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, Krystal, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Everybody on Instagram, they were having a good time waving at everybody, and I want to thank the people who sent us the chats. So if you want to find out more about Krystal, it's KrystalHopeReid.com, and you can also find her book, How to Live with a Psychic, on Amazon. Krystal, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Krystal Hope Reid. What a wonderful lady. She really is. And an amazing, amazing psychic. She sent me the document that talked about my dog, Josie, and it was spot on. It was perfect. So I really do appreciate her coming on the show. And, you know, I just want to kind of, when we close up the show here, because we just have a couple minutes left, Instagram, it's only an hour that they allow us to go live. So if you're watching from Instagram and we got our feed just now cut off, it's because we only have 1 hour. So sorry, guys, that you didn't get to finish up the show on Instagram. But we're getting that worked out, and we're going to be posting a lot more stuff. So take a look at our website, which is going to be faustfiles.com. Find us on Facebook. Definitely like our page. We're trying to grow the studio's page up there, and it's facebook.com/FaustFiles. Also on Twitter, same thing, Faust Files, with the little @ symbol. It's really cool. I'm not a social media guy, so for all of you out there who want to follow us, you can definitely do that and see all the live shows as they come through. Sometimes we do stream to our Twitter account as well, so if you happen to subscribe to us on Twitter or follow us on Twitter, you'll definitely be able to see the shows that way as well. So I want to thank everybody. Thanks to John, my producer there in the control room. He does such a great job making sure that the show runs great and on time, which it's doing right now because we are exiting out. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube if you want to win the alien pin. Definitely subscribe. We're going to announce some winners really soon. Well, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Chris Foust. Hope you all have a good night. Thanks.